Some villains always come back around, others fade into the background until they suddenly pop up again, startling us in the dark or causing us to wonder, new comic, who dis? Welcome back, Nerd Squad. I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Join me as we count down the top 10 villain comebacks we never saw coming. I know I didn't see some of these coming. I don't know about you. You can let me know in the comments. Number 10. Black Mask. Black Mask was killed by Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. She shot Black Mask point blank, killing him as revenge for what he'd done to those she loved and cared for, chiefly burning down a building in Selina's hood on the east side, which she was trying to help and was kinda under protection, and for hurting her sister Maggie in an irreparable way and basically driving her insane. However, surprisingly, this would not be the end of Black Mask. Black Mask would return as a Black Lantern during the Blackest Night event and would eventually even return to life, surprising many folks, Selina included. But I mean, Black Mask is so great. How can you just let that villain go? You can't, unless it's Birds of Prey, and then he's probably gone forever in the DCEU. Number 9. Mr. Sinister. One of the weirdest comebacks was when Mr. Sinister created a failsafe in the case of his death, which did inevitably happen. Sinister basically intended to come back via the mutant youth he had once experimented on, who are now all grown up. When this failed, he planned a backup for that backup. Claudine Ranko became Miss Sinister, but as startling as that transformation was, we were even more startled when Mr. Sinister suddenly returned through her, basically bursting out of her Miss Sinister form, overriding even his Miss Sinister, part Claudine, part Sinister self, and coming back entirely, at least for a few pages, until he could find a more permanent solution later on, when he would fully return via a clone. Also, he literally burst out of Miss Sinister, like literally was like, pop, here I am. It was weird and creepy and definitely super memorable. I know I found it shocking. I don't know if you found it shocking, but I did. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving our channel here on Top 10 Nerd, please go check us out over on Facebook, where we also have cool stuff, and we're also going to be having some exclusive things coming your way. In fact, at the time that this goes up, I think there will already be something super exclusive over there. You won't want to miss it, so make sure you are following us there as well. Number 8. Kite-Man. Kite-Man is often relegated to the C-list villains in the DC universe. He's often considered one of Batman's lamest villains, and yet via the Harley Quinn animated series, he saw a revitalization of his character, with him even getting a solid fan base due to how he was depicted in the show. I love when things like this happen to C-listers like Kite-Man or Polka Dot Man, a lot of mans out there, or even characters like Peacemaker. Not a man, just well, he is a man, but isn't a man at the end of his name. All of these characters are lesser known and even less appreciated usually, but honestly, they all deserve to be hyped for certain reasons. I love characters that are C-listers, in case you didn't know. Kite-Man, while an all-around good guy in the animated series, is still considered to be a villain in that animated universe, albeit still a C-list one. And yet this is what makes us love him so much. The fact that he is working hard to try and make a name for himself is kind of a huge part of why I think people just love him. That and the fact that he seems fairly comfortable with who he is, even though he isn't necessarily a top tier villain. And you know, he does know it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't try, and it doesn't mean that he is ashamed of who he is or his, you know, his kite gimmick. He rocks it. Hell yeah, Kite-Man. Hell yeah. Number 7. Kang the Conqueror. Kang the Conqueror is a staple villain when it comes to the Avengers team, but even still, he's not the first villain I think of when it comes to threats the Avengers might face in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's kind of a weird villain, and he's got a floating chair. It's weird. This is all part of the reason why I was surprised to hear that he was getting a revival, sort of, via the MCU, where he'd appear as a villain in Quantumania. Although even from that point on, I was one of the people speculating that his role in the MCU might be larger than just the Ant-Man and the Wasp film he was slated to star in. Especially when we heard that Jonathan Majors was going to be playing him, I was like, okay. You don't just do that and then make it like a one movie like blip of a villain. And so far it would seem to many others' surprise, I and some others may have been right when it came to our speculation on Kang's role. An alternate version of Kang appeared in Loki known as He Who Remains. This version of Kang warned of many different versions of himself that were basically being held back due to his maintenance and pruning of the sacred timeline. He also warned that killing him would actually cause the timeline to splinter, allowing all these Kangs to have free roam of the multiverse multiverse where many of them were not as chill as he was. And yeah, I don't think they're gonna be as chill. Kang the Conqueror, here we go. Number 6. Pariah. Pariah recently made a surprising comeback in the comics when he destroyed all of the Justice League, or well, like almost all of the Justice League. You've heard of the recent story Death of the Justice League. Well, yeah, that was Pariah. Although Pariah was once a scientist and fairly good man, he was driven mad when he learned that the multiverse was ending during the lead up to Crisis on Infinite Earths, way back in the day. He tried to warn people that it was coming, but people did not want to listen to him. Now, once more, he's in a similar position. In a desperate attempt to prevent another crisis from cyclically destroying everything, this time Dark Crisis, he decided to kill all the heroes, believing that in doing so he would basically prevent the cycle from continuing that would lead to the destruction of the multiverse. It's a pretty crazy idea, but at this point Pariah is a pretty crazy guy. Although it makes sense that he would be part of the catalyst for another crisis, DC fans were still surprised to see him return once more in modern comics. I think we were also all surprised that there's going to be another crisis, considering the last one was called Final Crisis. Not so final, turns out. Number 5. Inheritors. A whole group of villains that I think everyone was fairly surprised to see return again were the Inheritors. This is because the Inheritors were firmly defeated in the previous Spider-Verse event. However, because Spider-Verse was such a massive success, Marvel decided to let the Inheritors return for the next one, Spider-Geddon. And we still have another third chapter of this continuous event headed our way, said to be the end of the Spider-Verse trilogy that will be known as, aptly, the end of the Spider-Verse. At least until we decide to, open that Spider-Verse back up again, because, things end, things are final, and then not so much. I have no doubt that the Spider-Verse will come back eventually. The Inheritors are a group of space energy vampires permanently frozen in time when it comes to their style, stuck in sort of the gothic Victorian era. I love it, but not everybody is here for it. They were defeated and killed at the end of Spider-Verse, but miraculously came back via Superior Spider-Man's tech when he decided to combine their DNA to basically make a clone body for himself should he perish. Using his tech, all the Inheritors were able to return as clones themselves, causing all the Spider Totems across the multiverse to rejoin once more during Spider-Geddon to take them out again. And then they became little baby versions of themselves, which I love. And also I feel like the Inheritors, baby Inheritors, should get their own book. I said it. Number 4. Flashpoint Joker. The Flashpoint version of Joker is actually Bruce Wayne's mother, Martha Wayne. In the Flashpoint continuity, young Bruce is the one who perished during the mugging as opposed to his parents. Suffering greatly from the loss of their young son, Thomas turned to the path of vengeance, whereas Martha became extremely depressed and ultimately lost her mind, turning to the path of chaos. In the Flashpoint reality and timeline, Thomas becomes Batman and Martha becomes his Joker. Recently in the comics, during Flashpoint Beyond, Flashpoint Joker has made a surprising return, appearing from within the walls of Arkham Asylum. How she got there? Well, we're gonna have to wait and see. What we do know is that she was the one behind the murders of influential characters from the Flashpoint universe. The last we saw of Flashpoint Joker, Martha died drowning in a river, sacrificing herself after learning that in the main continuity, the Joker was the main nemesis to Batman, who in that reality of course was Bruce Wayne, her son, who was alive in that reality. The Flashpoint continuity was reset though recently, with Thomas Wayne's Batman remembering everything that happened previously and trying to solve the mystery of how it all reset. And also solve the mystery of, why all these Flashpoint people were dying. Turned out, it was Martha in the walls of Arkham for some reason. We don't know why. Number 3. Cassandra Nova. Cassandra Nova recently made a comeback in the Marauders series, a surprising one too, when she was needed to help solve a mutant mystery revolving around the existence of the very first mutants, hidden from the Earth mutant history apparently, and then later was invited to join the Marauders team by team leader Captain Kate Pryde. A lot of mysteries needing to be solved, and a lot of surprising villain comebacks in relation to those mysteries. At first I wasn't just startled to see Cassandra Nova, I was downright confused, but I gotta say over the last few issues her return has grown on me, and I'm kind of here for it. I never would have expected to see Cassandra Nova return, definitely not in a heroic sense either, not with a hero team. Krakoa may be for all mutants, but some wouldn't even consider Cassandra to be a mutant, at least not in the traditional sense. because she's a mummadry. But whatever, she's a mutant, she's part of the crew now, I would say. Number 2, Gaggy. This was one that even caught me by a delightful surprise during the Three Jokers story. While I still am not sure if we know where this story falls in continuity, in or out of continuity, it's still a really awesome read that brought back a villainous sidekick of old that I didn't know how much I really missed until I saw him return. Gaggy is Gagsworth A. Gagsworthy, an old school sidekick of the Jokers from way back in the day, back in the 60s, before he was ever with Harley Quinn. In fact, at one point Gaggy also returned to get revenge on Harley for taking his place at Joker's side, but that happened I believe during Gotham City Sirens, another cool comeback moment for the gangster. In Three Jokers, however, Gaggy returns as one of the Three Jokers' sidekicks. However, his comeback is short-lived, as he ends up being devoured by a Joker shark. R.I.P. Gaggy. He came back and then he died. Number 1, Rakil. I don't know how we say this name. It's Skrull, so I don't speak Skrull. I'm sorry. Need to learn how to speak Krakoan and Skrull. Got it. Rakil was a really weird comeback, so unexpected that it left everyone who was reading Marvel Comics at the time going, who? Huh? What's happening? Who is that? Even I had to look her up myself. Rakil was Empress of the Skrull Empire, who was believed dead for years. When Galactus came to devour the main homeworld of the Skrull at the time, Tarnax 4, Rakil was believed to have perished with it. However, we later learned during the Empire event a few years ago that she had actually survived the death of this world and had been living undercover as the Kree soldier T'Nalth the Pursuer. Her return was a major surprise to readers because she had been dead since the 80s, so before I was even born. So I was like, who dis? I don't know. So unless you'd been reading comics for that long, or you really knew your Fantastic Four comic book history in terms of what went down back then, you were likely confused by her appearance too. Which is alright, because you know what? We got the internet, and we got piles of comics that we can sift through. Although I think all of us collectively, no matter if we were familiar or not with Rakil, were surprised by her return. Even if you did know who she was, you'd be like, wait, what? I thought she was dead. Who are your favorite long forgotten villains that you'd love to see return? Which villains do you think deserve more time in the spotlight? Are there any villains' appearances that caused you to ask the question, who dis? Share with us in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. I'll see you next time, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.